Okay, good morning, everybody. I see a little notification up here, and I'm not even positive if we're streaming on Facebook or not. So
Oh,
we are,
we are.
I'm not really sure what to do. So we'll just keep going like things may be working correctly, although I see zero people
Me too.
tuning in.
Yes.
It says this,
Well, it's
pardon
being
me?
recorded. So,
Okay, I was just told by my assistant in the other room that we are streaming. I got a strange notification from
okay.
Facebook.
Yes.
I
Yes,
think
there's one
Facebook.
person watching us,
Okay, I think Facebook
and that could be your
worldwide is having
assistant.
problems today.
Hello, one person watching us, assistant from the other room.
So hopefully others are going to tune in and watch us
Yes.
for a little bit here as we struggle to figure out, are we live? Are we not? Are we on our Facebook page? Are we on YouTube? And I see a little notification up there. I think maybe we're not on our Facebook page, but we are on our Facebook group and on YouTube Live. So we're going to keep going for you guys, and we'll try
Sure.
to figure it out
We
later.
apologize to anyone who is missing it, but this is being recorded, so can certainly catch it right after this, can't they?
Yes, they can. We will, whatever Facebook it does show up on, or it gets saved as a YouTube video. You can watch it later there. I'll share it back onto Facebook if there's any of the Facebooks that it did not show up on.
We're
We
being
have
told
somebody here.
we're on the Facebook. We're there.
Yes, well, we're
So
obviously working on the Facebook group. And when I logged on this morning, I got a notification saying that Facebook was cutting broadcast short on Facebook groups, but it was working fine on Facebook pages. Now I'm getting something on my Facebook page that says we're not broadcasting on there. So I don't know what's going on, but
well, Linda's here from Mississippi.
we got somebody here
And
from Mississippi.
yeah. And Buddy's here from Tallahassee.
There we go.
So
And we're on the group page. So I
yes.
think that's enough.
Buddy, you weren't in the Beatles class. Buddy, we missed you in the Beatles class. I mean, you can't possibly have anything more important to do than just attend all of our classes. Yeah, I'm getting some kind of notice now too.
Okay, well, we're getting blown up with Facebook notifications here.
All
Isn't
right.
it great when these platforms have glitches? And I'm sure it's like affecting hundreds of broadcasts worldwide.
We have someone from Archer. That's good. Gainesville area. It's fantastic. Beautiful area up there. That's north of Gainesville, right?
Yes, I know it's near Gainesville. I'm not sure if it's technically north or west of Gainesville.
Well, you lived there for a little while, sort of. You
Yeah,
hung out there.
I've been through Archer.
Well, even before we started, Bill and I both got on here at like quarter till, and believe it or not, we spent 15 minutes talking about lawns. So whether or not we think we're being recorded, we can still talk about plants. So, any subjects anybody wants? We have someone from Spring Hill watching, and Irma. My mother's name was Irma, and she spelled it with an E as well.
For anybody who is able to post a question on here, please feel free. And Archer is north of Gainesville. Go Gators. So I know you're not far from Gainesville. And hey, we have somebody actually from Hernando County in Spring Hill on here. I'm in Spring Hill too today.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
I'm in the Royal Highlands.
I'm not sure how many of you were watching last week when we had a question from Louise Ravetto, and she was growing arugula, and she had unusual little eggs on it, and she didn't know what they were, what it was going to hatch into. And she did send a follow-up email and a couple of pictures. So here, let me go ahead and share her pictures here. And we can all see if this works correctly today. Can you see that all right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is what the little eggs turned into. And I was correct. They turned into little tiny caterpillars. And these look like cabbage white caterpillars, which are really common on any kind of brassica. So you're going to find them on arugula and broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, probably on kale, definitely on collards, turnips, and probably a number of other plants also. Really common little caterpillars.
Will they eat the plants?
Yes, they will they will gobble up the plant. And you know what they leave behind? You know what these little black speckles are?
Poop.
Poop, but the technical scientific term for it is frass. So insect poop is frass. So now you can tell everybody that you actually learned something today.
Well, I knew that, but I like the word poop better.
And she got a picture of a white butterfly. Now, these are the caterpillars that turn into the white butterflies, but we have a number of different species of cabbage white butterflies or white butterflies here in Florida. We do have the European species of cabbage white, which these caterpillars may be from. That's kind of the most common one you're going to find eating your plants. But there's a couple of other species and native species, and their caterpillars eat your plants also. So in case anybody was still wondering what those mysterious little eggs were, that's what they were.
You've got lots of other questions piling up here. That's great.
Yes, we do. Somebody from the Facebook group, leaf predators of young trees. My chestnut tree leaves are being eaten.
Where does she have a chestnut tree?
The American chestnut, you generally don't see anymore. They were the ones that were wiped out many years ago in the chestnut blight.
They were roasted on an open fire.
Yeah, and they're very, very common up north, not so much here in Florida. There is a Chinese variety of chestnut that you can grow that does not get that fungal disease that's spread by beetles. And they've worked on cross-breeding the two to come up with a cross between the Chinese, which is disease resistant, and the American chestnut, which was wiped out by the fungus many years ago. So there are some chestnut trees around, not many, not an awful lot, not very common.
No, I remember on a mountain in North Carolina, maybe Georgia, maybe it's Brasstown Bald, but on the trail they have, whether or not it's true, but like a sign like the last chestnut in America or something. And I'm sure scientists like you have saved, some for propagation purposes like you're talking about.
Sure. The American chestnut tree still does exist. They have germplasm from it. A lot of these diseases, the beetles don't find the trees and share the disease with the trees until they're a certain age, and they have to be, a certain height. So I'm sure that they still have plenty of little tiny American chestnut trees around. It's just not common. And like I said, up north, they used to be very common. But
kind of sad.
Let's see, caterpillars that eat trees. Right now, we get tent caterpillars, and you got two different kinds: the forest tent caterpillar and the eastern tent caterpillar. And both of them make the tents. It looks like a huge spider web up in your tree, and they crawl around and they eat the tree leaves. You don't have to worry too much about them because this is still spring. And they're going to eat a certain number of leaves, but what the tree does, it just grows more leaves and doesn't kill the tree or damage it long term. Maybe if it's a little tiny tree, it's only 4 feet tall, it's just not big enough to support, 100 hungry caterpillars eating all the leaves. You're going to have to do something. And you can just remove the nest by hand. We normally don't tell people to spray anything on it. So you just let the caterpillars be. You can pick them off by hand if you can reach them. But if you have caterpillars that are way up in your tree, we don't recommend getting on a ladder. We don't recommend you get on a ladder with a backpack sprayer and try spraying anything on them. The trees are going to get by just fine if it's just the tent caterpillars.
People panic because they think gypsy moth when they see those. That's what goes through their minds.
Yes, and we do not have gypsy moths down here. We don't have any forest caterpillars that go through and wipe out entire forests of otherwise healthy trees. So if you get these caterpillars, and the tent caterpillars are normally out in the spring, there's another one that's called a fall webworm, and they make a tent a big spider web looking thing also. And they can be out in the spring, but they can be out in the fall also. If you get them in the fall, it's a little bit more of a problem, because if they eat all the leaves or a lot of the leaves off your tree in the fall, early before the tree naturally drops its leaves, that's going to weaken the tree over time, over a couple of years, and it's going to be a little bit more of a problem. But the caterpillars in the trees right now, if it's an otherwise large, healthy, mature tree and otherwise healthy, it's really no problem. The trees can survive a lot of insect feeding.
Mm-hmm. Just getting a haircut.
Exactly, losing a few leaves. And if you start, and we, like I said, we don't recommend you breaking out the ladder and crawling up into your trees, but if you were to do that, we have at our Master Gardener Nursery some very large old pignut hickory trees. And if you climb up into them, you'll find the hickory horn devil, which is a huge caterpillar that turns into a really big moth. You will find Luna moth caterpillars every summer. They're up in the tree eating leaves, but you never notice it because they don't eat an awful lot of them. If you have a magnolia tree and you look real close, you're going to find magnolia scale. You're going to find aphids. You're going to find a whole bunch of insects up there feeding on it. But it's not really a big problem because otherwise healthy large trees can survive it no problem. They can take that feeding. So Linda asked, what is the best, easiest treatment for gnats on houseplants? What can happen?
I mean, whiteflies?
Well,
you think?
Probably not. On houseplants and in greenhouses and in commercial greenhouses, and even on container plants that you might have outside on your porch or lanai, if the soil gets too wet, there's a lot of insects that can live and breed in that soil, and they turn into little teeny tiny flies that we would call a gnat.
Okay, or like a drain fly even?
Possibly. Drain flies can breed in wet soil if there's a lot of organic matter. They really like the organic matter. And they'll breed in your sink or your pipes also. Fungus
That's really
gnats,
hard to get rid of.
Yeah, fungus gnats are a really common problem in soil. And a lot of times it's because that soil is being kept too wet. So at most houseplants, you want to water them really well and let the soil totally dry out before you water it again. Don't let your plants wilt, but get them to the point where they're just about to wilt, and then water them well. Make sure your pot has good drainage and let it dry out. Because the problem with houseplants is a lot of people like to water them a little bit every day or every other day, and just a little water. And if that soil stays too wet, then you're going to get fungus gnats breeding in them. If you still have a problem with them, and commercial greenhouse growers use this also, if you look online and you Google fungus gnat control, there are companies, Arbico is one of them, and they sell all kinds of different beneficial insects. And they do sell beneficial insects and beneficial nematodes that if you follow the directions, it's generally a packet of what looks like powder. You have to mix it with water it in, and those nematodes are going to naturally attack the fungus gnat larva and get rid of them that way.
They're like sea monkey nematodes?
Pardon?
So they're like sea monkey nematodes? Is that what you're saying?
No, these are these are real nematodes, not the old sea monkey ones. But
But it's what it sounds like. You water them and they come to life.
sure, you water them, they come to life. Now, they're too small for you to see. You need a special microscope to see them. But they will crawl around in the soil, and there are lots of really beneficial, good species of nematodes that will do that, that will attack other pest insects, and you can use them as a biocontrol. So if you want, you can look into that. I've never tried them myself, but I know Arbico, Arbico, is a big company, and there's a number of others where you can buy those beneficial nematodes. And another question here, somebody from our Facebook group says, I just bought Grass Be Gone, have not used yet. Anybody have any experience with that product? Grass Be Gone. Any idea what the active ingredient in that would be, Lily?
Are you asking me for real, or are you testing me?
Well, I'm asking you for real.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know herbicides very well. Grass Be Gone.
Pulled it up here. It contains a type
It's an ortho.
2,4-D in it.
Okay. That you have to be really careful with. The 2,4-D drifts onto non-target organisms so easily. Yeah.
Yes, I'm reading the label right now because I don't know the active ingredients in all these different products and trade names. I always have to look up what the active ingredient is, and that gives me a better idea of what you can use it on, what you don't want to use it on. Says it kills Bermuda grass, which is a really, really hard weed to kill. Bluegrass, which is not a problem here in Florida. Crabgrass, yeah, not that big of a problem. Barnyard grass, foxtails, a couple of others.
It's getting awfully hot, though.
Guess it is.
Usually, yeah, that plays a factor in how your herbicide can turn to a total vegetation killer.
Exactly. So with any kind of herbicide that you might be thinking about using, you have to read the label very carefully. If you have a St. Augustine lawn, you have to read the entire label and make sure it does not say anywhere, don't use on St. Augustine or Floratam. Because if you have a St. Augustine lawn, it's probably Floratam. 99% of St. Augustine lawns are Floratam. Floratam is the most common variety of St. Augustine. If you're using it on Bahia, make sure that it says that it can be used on Bahia. In the directions, it's going to say something like, do not use this product when daytime temperatures get above X number of degrees.
85. Yeah, usually 85 or so.
Generally mid-80s, yeah. And we are going to be there really, really soon. Well, I mean, today it's supposed to be 85 or above here.
Right.
What happens is if you use these products,
right, and that doesn't mean put it on before it reaches that.
Yeah,
I was going to say that doesn't mean do it early in the morning before it reaches 85. It means if your temperatures are at the point where they are regularly reaching 85, you don't want to use that product.
Yes, it's not safe to, because every summer we have a few people who buy these products, they don't read the label, or they buy a bag of weed and feed and they don't read the label, and they go out and put it on their lawn in the middle of August when it's regularly well above 90, and they kill the entire lawn. Weeds, grass, everything. And nothing you can do about that, because these products, if the daytime temperatures are too hot, will kill the weeds and your grass. If you use them during the winter or early spring or late fall when the temperatures are not that hot, it'll kill certain weeds and not your desirable grass.
Both Dr. Lester and I, if we didn't have our weeds, we wouldn't have very much grass. So
no, we wouldn't.
You know what? It looks really good mowed.
And you know, that's something that you have to remember to mention to people when they start talking about, weed and feed or weed killers, or I'm hiring a service and they say they're going to spray and they're going to kill all the weeds. Think about this for a moment. If your yard is 50% weeds and you have to pay a service to come out and they're going to come out and kill all the weeds, or you put down weed and feed and it actually works, or you spray something and it actually works well, what do you end up with? Lily, any ideas?
What do you mean? What do you end up? You end up with a bare lawn, usually.
You end up with 50% bare dirt.
Yes.
So
because you killed everything that was there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
And you might be thinking like, oh my gosh, this product killed my whole lawn. Well, no, it killed the weeds like it was supposed to. And it actually worked for you. So you need to have some kind of plan. And if you go out there and put this product down and kill all the weeds, so now your lawn is 50% bare dirt and 50% remaining Bahia or St. Augustine, whichever it might be, you need to have a plan for filling in that bare dirt. Because what happens to bare dirt in your lawn very quickly?
Oh, weeds will come right back.
Another crop of weeds comes up.
Yeah.
And then you're out there spraying again, and you're just going in a circle. You're never really accomplishing anything. So you need to have a plan up front.
Speaking of weeds, I have a class coming in June. What date did we make that? Sometime in June. I have to look it up on my events on Facebook, but I've read this article and it kind of fascinated me. So I'm going to make a class out of it. The weeds that you have, the things that are growing there, weeds follow Florida Friendly Principle number 1. Right plant, right place. They're following that principle. They're growing there for a reason, because the site conditions are conducive to that type of plant material. So we're going to study, what are your weeds telling you about your site conditions? You know, what are they revealing to you about the pH or the other soil conditions, and or maybe the light thing? You know, I found that kind of fascinating. Use these weeds as sentinels to tell you what you're dealing with. So we're going to have a class on that in June.
And I looked at my calendar, and that is scheduled for Tuesday, June 29th.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
He's more adept at this multitasking. He has a bigger screen than I do.
I tried, but when Facebook,
I know it's very odd. It's very odd to say that a man is better at multitasking than me, but in this instance, he is.
On occasion, I am. But when Facebook starts throwing up these big pink notifications, I get confused easily. So we got another question from somebody on our Facebook group. So if you're able to tell me where you live, that will really help to answer this question. Because they asked, I am in the process of making a small orchard, and that's great. That can work really well. But you have to be very careful of planting the correct things that are going to do well. You can experiment with other things, but know that they might work out pretty well and they might not. So they have peaches, apples, Chinese chestnuts. See, I told you about the Chinese chestnuts. Pecans, pomegranate, pear, avocado, and bananas. Are there other fruit trees that I can plant? There are lots of other fruit trees that you can plant. And they are from Archer, Florida, our person from Archer. So a little bit north of Gainesville. So it's going to be a little bit different than here, a little bit further north of here. Is that in a different zone? That's still 9A.
It's 9A-ish. You know, they may be actually 8B up there.
Probably not far from 8B.
Right.
So going through the list, peaches obviously can do very well up there. Georgia peaches. Georgia's further north from you.
They're probably on the border. You know, you get much further south, and peaches are, yeah, you're going to get 5 to 7 years out of your peach tree, maybe.
Yeah. Peaches do well there. Very important you get the right variety of peaches that are going to do well based on the number of chill hours you get. So if you get the right varieties of peaches, they're going to do well. Apples, not a big fan of apples in Florida. I don't know of many people who are successful at it. The trees can grow kind of for a while. They get a lot of fungal leaf spot. They drop their leaves early. They're beautiful when they flower. You don't get apples, or if you do, they're the size of crab apples. They're real small. They're not grocery store apples. They're all grown out in the Northwest. That's where you grow big, beautiful apples. They grow them up high, low humidity, different environment. Apples, you're going to have a better chance of them producing there than you do right here in Hernando County. Here,
those chilling hours.
Yeah. Have you ever known anybody to successfully grow apples in Hernando?
I know that that rabbit farm in Massac Town years ago, at least 20 or so, we're trying some of the Israeli apples. Now you would have to let's see, I was right. They're a combination of 8B and 9A. You would have to check back with them to see if they were successful, but I haven't heard about them like selling any apples or anything. You know, we tried these Annas, these Israel-based apples, but because we're thinking of the lack of chilling hours, but you know, like you just made a comment, low humidity. Yeah. Israel has low humidity. Florida does not have low humidity, so if you're doing it, I would call it an experiment, but know that, you know, lots of people have not been successful.
Yeah, although north of Gainesville, you have a better chance.
Sure.
Chinese chestnuts. I'm not really too familiar with them. They may do well up there. Pecans definitely will. You can grow pecans successfully from about Gainesville north.
And you said it right, because Gainesville North, those are pecans, not pecans. Those are pecans.
Pecans. And you can grow the great big, huge trees that have been there for many, 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 many years. It takes a long time to grow them, that are going to get tons of pecans. So pecans are a definite winner. Pomegranate, you should be able to grow up there. That's a new crop. And you can actually grow the kind of pomegranates that you buy at the grocery store around the holidays here. It's hard to get them that size. They're grown commercially right now out in California. That's where they get the big pomegranates. But you can grow pomegranates. They might be just a little bit smaller. Pears. Pears are tough in Florida, or really east of the Mississippi, because we have a disease here called fire blight. But you can grow pears up in Gainesville. But certain types. There's one they call a sand pear, and they're really, really gritty, but you can can them, and they're really good canned. So pears, certain types are going to do well. Other types might die a quick death from fire blight. And if you look that up, University of Florida has a ton of information on fire blight, how to diagnose it, and what it looks like if it affects your trees. Avocado, that's going to be tough because you're a little bit too far north from most avocados. There are varieties that are more cold resistant, but even that's a little sketchy. Even some of the cold resistant varieties tend to freeze back every winter, like from Hernando County north. And what you end up with is an avocado tree. Every winter it gets knocked back. It recovers. Next winter it gets knocked back. And it never grows to a point where it's going to flower, get avocados, and you're going to be able to pick them and eat them.
Which is exactly the same thing that happens with your bananas, basically.
Bananas are the same. And you can get bananas up there, but the cold weather every winter is going to knock them back. Bananas and avocados, if you're able to protect them from cold or plant them in a spot up around your house, people will build greenhouses or hoop houses or some kind of covering over an avocado tree, bananas, papayas, things like that, and be successful at them. You have to keep them from freezing back every winter.
It seems to me that he's trying to follow the idea that's out there of a food forest in his yard. That's what it looks like he's
exactly
trying to accomplish there. Sounds pretty cool.
It's a great idea, especially if you have room, enough property.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple other things that you may want to seriously consider growing. Something that's very, very, very closely related to peaches that a lot of people forget about or don't think about.
Nectarines.
Nectarines and plums. There are some really good varieties of University of Florida plums that do really well, and they like a little bit of extra cold in the winter. I grew them in Volusia County, and every couple of years when we had a cold winter, I get a huge crop that spring, and they did really well. Being a little bit further north, you might do a little bit better. They might be a little bit happier with the slightly colder winters and reliable cold every winter. So plums are a good choice.
What about blueberries?
Blueberries would do great up there. There's a lot of varieties of rabbit eye. Stick with rabbit eye blueberries. They don't flower and fruit as early as the ones that commercial growers are using now, but that's a good thing because up there, if they flower and fruit too early, you'll probably get a late frost and it's going to freeze all the blueberries off. You get nothing. Blackberries, plenty of different blackberries that do well up there. You can experiment with raspberries.
Really?
Raspberries do not grow here in Central Florida. Doesn't get cold enough in the winter and too steamy in the summer. Up there, you could try.
Now I'm jealous.
Parts out.
Now I'm jealous that he can try raspberries.
Yeah, I know.
Blackberries are blooming right now.
Blackberries here in Hernando County are pickable right now. All the UK blackberry places are open, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you have options up there. There's still things that grow up north that you probably don't want to try. I mean, you could try, but you're too far south to grow up. Things like cherry trees, a lot of the different types of pears because of fire blight, a lot of different types of apples, like the varieties of apples that they grow up north. The southern, Golden Dorset and Anna, and there's Einsheimer, I think, which is an Israeli variety. So yeah, you have a lot of choices up there. Really, no matter where you live, there are plenty of fruiting things that you can grow in your yard. You just really have to look into it to make sure that, number one, what you're trying to grow is going to be successful. And number two, you're getting the right variety that's going to grow where you live. Because the peaches that you want to plant here in my yard and your yard, Lily, is different varieties than what they plant in Archer, and very different varieties from what somebody grew up in Ohio.
Right. My sister has one in Pennsylvania, a peach tree in her yard. Yep. And it would be totally different than what I would try and get. And hers is she was not going to have as many struggles with hers as we might with ours.
Yeah, and if she dug it up and moved it down here, it may survive and be an attractive tree, but it's never going to flower and get fruit because we just don't get enough cold down here like you do in Pennsylvania. Thank goodness.
That's why we're all here.
Exactly. But Buddy says he has apples in Tallahassee, Anna's. Yeah, that's far enough north where they're getting enough cold where there's a much better chance of being successful with them up there. And our friend from Ulster says food forest is the goal, and they have 5 acres. So that's great. There is so much that you can do with that. We had a class on the basics of putting in a food forest and just kind of the way you want to approach it.
Kind of works in layers, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It is kind of a layered idea. So you're growing everything from the chestnut and pecan trees, which are getting really, really large. And there's lots of other trees that are adapted to be understory trees. They need a certain amount of shade. They like to grow underneath or around much bigger trees.
Like the blackberries?
Well, the blackberries are going to be even smaller. They're going to be little bushes, but like the native plums, Chickasaw plums and hog plums, They're understory trees. Redbud trees, and you can't eat them. That's a pretty ornamental. That is an understory tree.
Sure.
And it's probably going to do a little bit better mixed in with other larger trees. So you have to figure out where these trees are happiest and just create a system. And it really is.
If you're going to have that, though, I would make sure that you're dedicated to it. Because to plant it and then say, I'm tired of doing that, and then, 10, 15 years, you have fruit all over the ground, you also are going to have varmints all over the ground, too. So that is something, if you're going to do, you need to be very dedicated to maintaining it. So.
Exactly. And it takes a certain amount of maintenance, but not an awful lot. Once fruit trees and other things become established, you have to do your maintenance on a regular schedule at the right time of year, but it doesn't have to be extremely time consuming. The more natural you let it go, the less hours it's going to take.
You just go out there with your basket and go grocery shopping.
Exactly. But I went ahead and put my email there. It's wlester@ufl.edu. If you want to shoot me an email, I'll send you a link to our video on food forests. It was given by one of our brand new master gardeners who's graduated from New College in Florida.
Sarasota.
In Sarasota. And she's very, very knowledgeable on food forests in general. So she didn't go too much into the specifics of exactly what fruits to plant and the exact care of them. It's more of an overview and a way of looking at the whole system to help you think about it and plan it and get off on the right start before you start, just plunking plants and trees all over your yard. And then you end up with a hodgepodge.
Right. Got to have a plan.
Exactly.
Failure to plan is planting to fail.
And they put their email on here. So let me write that down. So Lily, what kind of classes do we have coming up in the next few weeks? Don't we have a week off coming up?
I do, yes.
Okay.
I don't know what you're doing. I don't have a week off. I have a week off from teaching. I'm moving back into the office. This is the last time you'll see me in my pretty pink walls and home office here. To my knowledge, you don't know what the future holds. I'll be moving full-time back to working in the office that employs me. I'll be there officially Monday, but I'm going in tomorrow to, set things up and stuff. So we won't be having a class Tuesday or Wednesday. The first time I'll appear to test out the internet in that building will be at next Thursday's plant clinic with you. So then the following week, the 12th, I am going to be wrapping up our series on rotted, recycled, and resurrected. We have talked about soil science through that series. We have talked about fungus through that series. Did you like my joke last week about the fungus?
Yeah.
I guess now I have to tell it again. How much room does a fungus need to grow, Dr. Lester?
I don't know. How much room does a fungus need to grow?
As much room as possible. And
okay. Nobody dropped off.
Tuesday,
Nobody dropped off the broadcast here, so I guess it wasn't that bad of a joke.
This past Tuesday, we talked about beetles. BEETLES, not BEATLES. Very interesting class on beetles. I learned a lot from Dr. Lester. He and I hang out all the time, and I still have yet to even scrape tiny portions of his brain out. So he teaches me things all the time. At least the soil science and the fungus one is already available for to be recorded. The Beatles one, because he tried to get fancy and did a little walkabout to show you some of these Beatles, that may or may not have shown up. So it might need to be edited out, but that'll be, at least portions of it will be showing up soon. So what I'm going to do on May 12th is, it's called Bringing It All Back Home. We're going to talk about soil science, fungus, the bugs and everything out there, how that all works together to bring new life into your yard. We want to have the most sanitized yards possible, but that's not how nature works. Nature works, in a circle, and death brings life, and it all works together. And we're going to say how we can harness that, the circle of life, to have a more vital landscape. That's on the 12th. On the 19th, I'm having a really exciting one. I'm having a guest speaker. I've had her once before, Alice Mary Herden. She's a master naturalist and a nature photographer. I've had her before talk about the wildflowers that her and I had spent some months going out and finding. This time, Alice is going to talk to us. It's called Go For It, Gardening for Gopher Tortoises in Your Yard. She's done some studies on that, and so she's going to tell us what the tortoises are looking for, what makes a nice environment for them. Whatever my yard has, they're happy with. They just kind of wander around out there. Then I'm having a live in-person rain barrel workshop at Chinsigit Conservation Center on May 26th. So, and if you're interested in that, can you put my email up, Dr. Lester?
Sure.
My very long, complicated email that Bill doesn't like. If
We'll
you're
leave it up
interested,
there for a while so you can copy it down.
If you're in Hernando County and interested in obtaining a rain barrel, they are $50. If you are a customer of Hernando County Utilities, you will get a one-time credit on your water bill of $25 for attending a workshop and taking your rain barrel home. Said I'm having an in-person one at the Chinsigit Conservation Center. First step in signing up for that is emailing me at that email address. Also at that time, if you're more interested in a virtual workshop that will include a compost bin, email me and I'll send you that information. The May class for that is full, but we have just scheduled a June 24th evening virtual via Zoom workshop where you get to learn about rain barrels, you get to learn about compost bins, and then the next day you'll come to my office and pick those items up. Compost bins are free to Hernando County residents only, and one bin per household. But you can find out all of that great information by emailing me. So what do you got coming up, Dr. Lester?
I think I kind of get a week off along with you. I have a conference I have to be at pretty much all next week. We will be back here again, though, next Thursday at 10 a.m. for the weekly virtual plant clinic right here. And hopefully we will be transmitting on all the different Facebook pages. Hopefully
the internet works at my office and you'll see me.
Hopefully Facebook will fix that. I'm sure they will. I'm sure it's a glitch or something. A squirrel got into the wiring at Facebook Central or something, I guess.
Could be.
I am involved with the composting class also that Lily mentioned. So if you're a Hernando County resident and you attend our class online, email Lily for, to sign up and for information about that. But if you're a Hernando County resident, you are eligible for a free compost bin. And I have one right in my backyard.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you're interested in what we're talking about, rain barrels, compost bins, but you don't live here and you live far from here and, it's not going to work out for you to actually receive the items, but you're interested in the topic, again, email me, note that. I'll send you 2 links where one is a rain barrel workshop video that I've given. One is a compost bin lists compost workshop that Bill and I did. We'll send you those links and you can watch them at your own convenience. So at least you can learn about the subject. I know that Hillsborough County, if anyone is listening from there, is having a rain barrel workshop coming soon. So you might want to check with the Hillsborough County Extension Office. Or wherever you are, check with your county extension office, find out if they're doing rain barrel workshops. A lot of places you do have to be a resident of that county. You don't here, but I know you're not going to come from Leon County to get a rain barrel.
It's a bit of a drive.
Yeah, so find out where you can get one close to you.
And we have one final question here today about lasagna pattern for prepping soil for vegetable gardening. And I've read the book on lasagna gardening, very, very good book, and it explains everything really well. What that is when you're preparing a new, normally vegetable garden. It could be herbs, it could be a flower garden also, but a new garden bed, instead of digging up all the grass and weeds and stuff that's there, and then using a tiller and bringing a lot of stuff in to work into the soil, what you do is you just put down layers, kind of like you're making lasagna. That's how it got the name. You lay out the area that you want to turn into a bed, and you don't bother digging the grass up or removing it. You cover it a lot of times with cardboard. You could cover it with shredded paper. I think cardboard works the best. And a little tip, if you're using cardboard in the garden, pull the tape off of it first.
Come on, man.
I think all of us probably have Amazon boxes in the garage, so we probably all have that kind of cardboard. But the cardboard will break down over time, but the tape never will. So take the tape off in advance, lay down the cardboard. On top of that, you can start putting in layers of grass clippings, leaves, compost, bagged soil amendments like black cow manure, mushroom compost, whatever it might be. You layer this stuff up, and you have to be patient because it takes time. You let it sit, and it all breaks down. It all composts naturally eventually on its own. And then without having to break your back or use a shovel or rent a tiller, eventually you're able to go out there and just plant directly in it. Because everything, even though it gets layered, eventually all breaks down. And now you have your garden bed. Now it does take time, so you need patience. If you're not patient and you want to get something dug up because you need to be planting in a month or so, yeah, you're going to have to use the shovel. At least you really don't have, well, if you have roots, you have to use a pickaxe. We don't have a whole lot of rocks down here, so you don't have to worry about that. Look on the bright side. But you need a shovel, maybe a pickaxe, maybe a tiller.
Good thing to start in the summer for your fall vegetable garden.
Yes, you always want to be thinking ahead when we're talking about a garden. So believe it or not, right now it's just about May 1st. You need to know what you're going to plant this summer, and you need to be thinking about what you're going to put in next fall and when. And do you need to start transplants? Do you need to order seeds? What varieties you're going to experiment with? You need to be thinking months in advance so that you ideally are going to do what you need to do when you need to do it, and you're going to be on schedule. I'm always a little bit behind schedule. I'm absolutely amazed when I get something in the ground like early, because it never happens.
Could you accomplish that lasagna layering thing like in a raised bed? Just start putting all the layers in there?
Sure. You could. That's basically doing the same thing I described, but framing it out
on the ground
with the frame. And then putting cardboard or newspaper at the very bottom, something to block the grass and kill it. And then your amendments in layers on top of it. And then be patient, and eventually you magically have a raised bed, which is just a garden spot in a box, basically.
Now,
that you can start
do you
planting.
want to add finished compost, or can you actually start that just, with your kitchen scraps?
You can start it with your kitchen scraps. That's called sheet composting.
Yeah.
That's where you take banana peels and apple cores and bad carrots and everything else, shredded paper.
From your forest, from your food forest.
But you can go out and lay it in your garden bed and cover it with soil. You have to wait until it breaks down. But here in Central Florida, that happens pretty quickly. You can dig a hole and bury it. It's going to break down. You can throw it in the walkways in your vegetable garden and cover it with mulch. Because if you throw that kind of stuff in the walkways, it's a walkway. You don't want to be walking on it a whole lot.
Right.
But you throw some kind of mulch on top of it, shredded paper, grass clippings, leaves, pine needles, whatever, and it'll break down. So things will compost. You don't always have to put it in a bin for it to compost. It'll compost wherever you put it. Might get a little messy. That's the only downside.
Or might have some raccoons visiting you or something too.
Sure. So it's going to be kind of exposed and open to animals and everything else. So Buddy agrees that it would be quite a drive to come to one of your rain barrel classes. And if you guys ever want to know about any of our classes, if you go to www.hernandoextension, all one word.com, that's a full listing of everything we have coming up. That's fed directly from our Facebook page. So when we have it planned out and we put it on Facebook, we make an event, it shows up on that web page. You don't have to have Facebook to be able to go to that web page and see what we have coming up. Keep in mind, a lot of these things, even if you're not able to catch the class live, we record pretty much everything now, don't we?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that we don't record.
Well, the rain barrel workshops, we don't record those because you have to attend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing we don't record.
Yeah, but even the compost class, we do have a recorded class that you could watch.
Yes, we do. Like I said, and if you are interested in the topic and don't have the capacity or don't wish to receive the item, we'll send you that. But if you want the item, you have to attend the official unrecorded workshops. So we give you these secrets we can't tell anybody. No.
We teach you the secret handshake, I guess.
Yes. I have a question for you real quick with 7 minutes left. It kind of goes with what you were just talking about. I recently read about keyhole gardening.
Oh.
You're not familiar with that?
Nope.
Okay. Well, it's because it's a vegetable garden shaped like a keyhole, basically. Kind of a rounded raised bed. But there's an area that you can walk into so that you have access, but in the middle is like a wired cage where you throw all your compost so that the compost is breaking down and kind of side dressing the rest of the vegetable garden as it's breaking down.
That's really smart. I know if nothing else, putting your compost bin very close to your garden is smart because that way you don't have to move it very far. It's, right there. It's handy. And as it finishes or as you're switching over crops, you can, move it from the compost pile or bin into the garden.
Right. The keyhole thing, though, like I said, you want to try and contain it in some kind of wire cage or something. Didn't look very conducive to turning it or aerating it, though. So, that looked kind of difficult. So, but it was an interesting idea to think when it rains. So then, it's raining on your compost pile and seeping into, your vegetable garden, which I thought was kind of cool there.
Yeah, no, that'll work. That'd be a good idea.
I'll have to send you a link about it.
That would be great. Okay. We're going to do one more quick question here. Let's see how many different banners I can get on the screen all at once. There we go. I believe our viewer from Archer asks, or this may be somebody else from the Facebook group, are there any fruit and vegetable scraps that we cannot put in a compost pile? Nothing I can think of. It's
diseased ones treated with an herbicide.
Yeah, you want to.
That's it.
If you have diseased plants in your garden, you want to not compost them. The diseases hold over. Keep in mind, when a lot of times when you compost things, the seeds are going to survive. So you have a bad tomato or cucumber, you end up with a lot of little plants popping up in and around your compost bin. Those are called volunteers, and they can grow. They'll do just fine.
Yeah. The only thing you don't want to put in your compost bin is animal products, with the one exception of
eggshells.
Eggshells. There we go. And the eggshells are pretty much pure calcium. So you throw them in their hole and you look 2 years later and they're in their hole. So break them up, to put them in there. They help add some calcium as it leaches off, and they help, add some porosity and things such as that. But any other kind of animal products, they just encourage the wrong kind of bacteria. You don't want to put in pet manure, certainly not human manure. And in our class about it, it's called From Trash to Treasure, we discuss the proper ways of handling livestock manure. So,
yes, if you want to use animal manure, there's a lot of things that you need to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. Food safety is number one. And, be careful with salads and things like that, too. The salad in your refrigerator has gone bad. I'll just throw it in the compost pile. Well, does it have an oily dressing on it? Does it have cheese in it? Then unfortunately, it's not qualified for your compost bin.
Yeah, and leftover pizza is probably not a good additive either.
Probably not.
That's just going to get nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think that's about it. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. I guess I don't have to apologize to all of you watching us live, because you're obviously were able to watch us live through our Facebook group and through our YouTube page. I'll have to go over onto our regular Facebook page and apologize to all of them, I guess. But that's okay. I could download a recording of this and put it back over there so they can watch it, just a little bit late. Hopefully, Facebook will get all the problems worked out by next week, and we'll be able to come back to you live on all of our different venues, and hopefully we will see all of you again next week. Until then, thank you so much, everybody from all over the country at this point, which is great. Yep. And we'll see you then. Thanks again.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.